Chevrolet. How it's made. 60 years ago, a Chevrolet wasn't built. It was forged by people. Sparks in the dark, presses that shook the floor, and a final moment called the marriage, when a body hovered over a waiting frame like a moon over the horizon. And then the car was born. Today, we're stepping inside that world. Title and promise. Welcome to Back in Time. Chevrolet 150, 210, and Bel Air Factory. This is how America's most recognizable family cars rolled off mid-century lines, step by step, bolt by bolt. In the next 20 minutes, you'll see how raw steel became a Fisher body shell, how the famed small block V8 was assembled like clockwork, and how an ordinary Wednesday could end with 100 new Chevys headed for Main Street, USA. Stick around, because the most dramatic moment happens right before the car touches the ground. And yes, we'll uncover the two-tone secret painters used to nail those iconic Bel Air color brakes. The world outside the factory. America. Early 1960 seconds. Diners glow in neon. Interstates spool out like ribbons. A new house might cost $15,000. And a new Chevrolet, a 150 for thrift, a 210 for practicality, or a Bel Air for sparkle was more than transportation. It was a rite of passage. But before the keys hit a customer's palm, the car lived a parallel life, an industrial odyssey across stamping rooms, body jigs, paint ovens, and trim lines. The people doing the work wore denim and canvas, leather aprons, and often no ear protection. The rhythm was relentless, the craft precise, and the stakes high. Mess up a weld point? A squeak appears 5 years later. Misalign a trim spear? A dealership sends it back. To understand the Chevrolet of the driveway, we have to meet the Chevrolet of the factory floor. From steel to shape the Fisher body shell. The journey begins with steel coils and sheets that arrive by rail. Overhead cranes feed the behemoths. Stamping presses the size of small buildings. A hood panel, a fender flare. Each press hits shapes a die-defined curve that we still recognize on sight. Panels flow to the body shop. Here, Fisher Body's genius is in the fixtures. Giant jigs that hold everything in perfect position. Men in caps and women with steady hands align panels. Spot weld guns kiss metal rapid, staccato, thousands of times per shell. Rockers, roof bows, quarter panels, cowl click, lock, weld. The human touch is everywhere. Sheet edges get hand-dressed. Doors are hung, then gapped, opened, and rehung until the reveal looks right to the eye and feels right to the fingertip. On premium trim, a lead-loading crew might smooth seams with molten solder and paddles, creating those buttery transitions you can't fake. But shiny metal shows every flaw. The next room is where perfect becomes permanent. Paint, phosphate, primer, and the two-tone trick. Bare bodies roll into a cleansing gauntlet. Degrease, rinse, and a phosphate bath that helps paint, stick, and resist rust. After drying, the shell receives primer sprayed by hand with sweeping passes, then baked to cure. Color is culture. In this era, lacquers and enamels rule. India ivory over tropical turquoise, onyx black, with a silver spear combinations that made driveways smile. Two-tone required choreography. Painters laid fine-line tape along trim brakes and stainless guides. Paper masked off the lower or upper half. Then color went on in overlapping coats. Into the oven again. After curing, the second color is sprayed. Then the reveal. Tape peels back, and a razor-sharp line appears where steel will later wear chrome. One problem: paint chips if you handle it wrong. The next department must build a car around it without touching it in the wrong place. The frame and running gear. A chassis built like a bridge. While paint cures, a different world hums. The chassis line. Chevrolet's full-size cars of the era use a perimeter frame boxed rails, crossmembers strong enough for American roads and family vacations. Leaf springs assemble in stacks. Front suspension arms get bushings pressed, then spindles and kingpins. Drums and shoes mount to backing plates. Steering linkages thread through with castle nuts and cotter pins, old-school solutions that just don't fail when set correctly. Fuel tank straps, brake lines, a drive shaft ready to spin. At stations set by tack time, each crew hits the same marks, in the same order. Those marks become muscle memory. That muscle memory becomes consistency. But a car isn't a car without its heart. And this heart, well, it changed everything. The small block V8, America's heartbeat. Chevrolet's small block V8 turned ordinary commuters into enthusiasts. Blocks arrive from the foundry as rough castings. The machine shop makes them precise. Boring bars cut cylinder bores. Line hones true the crank journals. Decks are plain flat. On the assembly benches, it's a ritual. Main bearings, crankshaft. Torque the caps in sequence. Pistons right into bores with ring compressors and a gentle tap of a wooden handle. Yes, wood, not a scratch on the walls. Camshaft and timing set link the bottom and top. Heads drop on with new gaskets, push rods line up, rocker arms adjust with feeler gauges and a trained ear. Carburetor sits like a crown. Generator brackets, fan, water pump, belts. With each station, a V8 becomes your V8. 265, 283 tuned for the road or for the spirited, paired with a 4-barrel and dual exhaust. Before that engine meets its frame, some plants hot-tested engines, oil pressure, idle, a brief run. If the note didn't sound right, it never left the bench. Power to the road gearboxes and rears. Transmissions offered two personalities: the straightforward 3-speed manual clutch pedal, column shift, or the smooth Power Glide automatic, famous for its bulletproof simplicity. Assembly techs mate bell housings, install clutches and linkages, or torque converters for Power Glide. Rear axles are set up with ring and pinion gears. Lash and pattern are checked with paint on the teeth when the sweep lands in the sweet spot. It's silent and strong. Axle shafts slide home. Seals keep the gear oil where it belongs. Chassis stands ready engine on a hook, trans on a cart, and yet the most cinematic scene in the factory is still ahead. The marriage body meets frame. They called it the marriage. The painted body arrives above on an overhead conveyor, masked where it matters, gliding like a ship's hull. Below, the rolling chassis frame, engine, suspension, brakes, weights. Guides and pins line up. Supervisors watch the first contact. Rubber biscuits body mounts kiss steel. Bolts drop through. On the signal, air ratchets sing in unison. At that second, a collection of parts becomes a car. But there's no time to admire the view. Doors come off again, yes, again, so trim teams can work inside without leaning over the paint. If you've ever wondered why a 1,960 seconds Chevy door closes with that soft thunk, here's the secret. Trim, glass, and electrics. Feeling like a car, trim is where a Chevrolet earns its nameplate. Inside, sound deadener mats lay down on floors. Wiring harnesses snake along channels, hand-taped intervals, connectors that only fit one way if you know the trick. Headliners stretch like drum skin two people. Heat lamps, patience. Seat frames get springs, burlap, padding, and vinyl or cloth pulled tight as a drum. Dash clusters with needles like jewelry seat into bezels that gleam. A radio slides in with a satisfying click of the chrome knob. Glass is an art. A rope trick, literally a cord around the rubber gasket, helps pull a windshield into its opening as two workers press from outside and inside in perfect sync. Done right, the chrome reveal moldings snap on without a fight. Door weather strips glue down. Latches and strikers are adjusted until that thunk arrives. It's not magic, it's millimeters in mindset. Everything looks finished. But the car hasn't proven itself yet, not to the factory and not to the customer. Tests, tuning, and the rain, fluids fill first. Oil, coolant, brake fluid, fuel. A battery clamps in with felt washers and a smear of grease to resist corrosion. The engine fires. Some lines called it a roll test, others a hot test. Idle settles, timing lights flash across the damper, mixture screws tweak for a steady heartbeat. Headlights sweep across a calibration wall. Aim is adjusted for oncoming courtesy. Brakes are bled, then measured on a roller stand. Steering alignment caster, camber. Toe gets set with gauges that clamp to wheels like metal dragonflies. Then the drama. The rain booth. A storm-controlled but thorough pounds the car with sheets of water. If a drip appears around the windshield, if the trunk gasket betrays a trickle, the car goes back. No exceptions. Pass the rain, and the car earns its jewelry. Jewelry and identity badges, chrome and inspection. This is where a basic 150, a sensible 210, or a showy Bel Air declare themselves. Stainless spears align with quarter panels. The Bel Air script perches on fins, hood birds, deck emblems, wheel covers, all installed with soft tools so chrome never sees a scar. Inspectors run their hands along hems of fenders, door edges, trunk lips, eyes trained for waves and reflections. Upholstery gets a final brush. A protective paper mat lays on the floor. Someone wears white gloves and a skeptical expression. It's not personal, it's pride. Now for the most quiet and most important moment of all. Paper trail and destiny off the line. Build slips match with order numbers. The car's identification and options engine, transmission, axle ratio, paint and trim codes are checked against the manifest. A grease pencil note under the dash, a stamp on the cowl tag, even a paper build sheet tucked somewhere you might discover decades later, it all ties the car to its story. Final okayed, a brand new Chevrolet rolls under fluorescent light, paint glowing, exhaust ticking as it cools, protective covers on the seats, tags on the steering wheel. Rail cars and transporters wait outside. The next time this Chevy sees sunshine, it'll be at a dealership, where someone in a modest suit will turn a key and feel the future. Why it matters. Human hands. Lasting legacy. What made these cars special wasn't just steel and style. It was the people. Teams that developed a rhythm, line leads who could hear a loose fastener from 20 feet, a painter who could lay a two-tone brake by feel. When we talk about how it's made, we're also talking about memory, how these practices, this choreography, created machines that still run, still gather on weekends, still tell stories in chrome and glass. A Chevrolet 150, 210, or Bel Air is a family photo album you can drive. And in case you're wondering the best seat to watch the marriage, it was under the body drop, where the world paused for a breath and a car came to life. Thanks for traveling back with us. If you enjoyed this deep dive into mid-century manufacturing, give this video a like so more people can discover it. Subscribe for more how it's made, from classic assembly lines to modern robotics, and tell us in the comments which era or model we should visit next. I'm the factory line, and this is how Chevrolet is made.